Welcome to the Peak Podcast. My name is Kyle Nelson. I've got my co-host and my great friend and good buddy here, business partner, Eli Libby. Eli, what's up, my man?
What is going on, man? Looking forward to today. I always look forward to the podcast, man. We always have a lot of chaos coming up into them, and then the podcast is a great time.
Yes.
You and I connect, but also with a guest.
Yeah. And we have a really good guest today.
We do.
It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. But before we get started, just as a reminder, the Peak Podcast is all about talking to other coaches and speakers and authors and trying to understand and find that exact peak moment that they had when they knew that there was transition in their life coming up. There was a new identity shift, or maybe it was they became a coach. What was happening before that to make them feel like they had impact and they were ready to go? And outside of that, of course, we are the co-founders of Peak Fulfillment, a self-guided solar retreat program and mastermind where you go for around 3 days on a solar retreat that's guided and go over things such as self-discovery, self-reflection, and vision crafting. But without further ado, let's have Tony Pisanelli come on. He is a two-time international best-selling author and a dynamic speaker and the creator of the Career by Design system and founder of the Career and Reinvention Specials. So what's going on, Tony? Welcome to the Peak Podcast. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I'm delighted that I was invited to appear. I'm delighted. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Tony. Are you still in Melbourne? Is that where you're located at right now?
Yes, I live in Melbourne, Australia. So I know American people are fascinated by people who live down under. It gives them a different perspective on things. So hopefully I can live up to that today.
I think it's the accents that we love. I think that's what it is, Tony.
The accents, yeah. We have accents too, so.
We do. Well, Tony, thanks for being here, man. Excited to dive into your background and what you're working on today. So, let's kick it off and let's share with our audience what are you building right now? What is the program that you're so passionate about?
At the moment, I am looking at developing a bit of a leadership program for organizations who are looking to train their next level of leaders.
Okay.
One of the challenges these organizations have is there's more than one model of leadership, as you both know. So it's making a bit of a shift in the leadership dynamic where people think it's about their own reward.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that external validation. I want more power, I want more status, I want more money. So that's the external dynamic of leadership. But there's another hidden dimension of leadership, which is what Stephen Covey talks about, which is he talked about primary greatness. And he says that's less about the external validation, but more about the contribution you're here to make. So that's the leadership sort of model of training that I'm working with a couple of companies to look at developing for their leadership teams.
That's awesome. And when you're diving into these companies, what is it that attracts them to you? How are you getting involved with them? What is the one number unique item you're bringing to the table with your program? How are you looking at it differently?
I'm looking at it differently because a lot of organizations have a primary profit focus. And a particular gentleman I was speaking to, and I knew there was an alignment in thinking or resonation, was his view was it's purpose before profit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once you put the purpose first and you're there to serve, the profits will follow. But if you make it about profits first and it becomes about revenue generating, maximizing the number of transactions, the purpose can become lost.
Oh, so true.
And the customer experience can be damaged.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. It happens very quickly. It can really, when you start really focusing on the profit and you forget about all other things like the actual people and the actual clients, it can happen so quick. And then in return, the profit gets messed up, right? And that's where people come to you because they say, man, I've been so focused on the profit. I don't understand what's going on. Well, you're too focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
you become one-dimensional. Now, I'm not saying the profit shouldn't be there.
Right.
Your business leader will say, hey, if we don't generate a profit, obviously, then I don't have a business to fulfill a purpose.
Exactly.
So they need to work in tandem, not kill one for the sake of the other. But I'm saying a lot of businesses become so one-dimensional on delivering this result, the purpose becomes damaged in the process or neglected.
Sure. Tony, when you first engage with a leader, what are some things that you do to help them find what that calling or purpose might be, or that heartbeat that's leading the profit? What are some things that you do to kind of work them through, exercises that you might do or programs you refer? What does that look like?
Well, there's a questioning process. I'm looking for the cause or the calling. So I was speaking to one gentleman, and he works for a company which is a disinfectant company. Okay. And so I say, well, okay, what's the meaning that drives you to that? And he goes, you'd be surprised. I mean, how many people in the world are dying each day because they are prone to bacteria and germs and all sorts of things that they take for granted. It was interesting. He mentioned in a conversation I had with him, he goes, your mobile phone is a Petri dish.
Oh, man. Ain't that the truth?
It's covered in all sorts of stuff. But how many people are stopping to clean it on a daily or every few days
For sure.
to get rid of all that stuff?
Nobody.
So can you see he's got a mission behind what he's doing? He's not just selling disinfectant. He's trying to save lives.
Right.
Totally.
I love that.
Wow.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about, before in the pre-call, we talked about the topic you speak on, which is the Superman suit. Taking that heroic leap from ordinary job to extraordinary life. That really, really fascinates me because on one end, you're talking about an ordinary job, and then it's taking it to an extraordinary life. And people typically divide when they look at the balance of their life, they think, okay, I have my career, I have my personal life. And to me, it sounds like you're able to really bring that together so people actually have passion and love for what they do, which bleeds into their personal life, right?
Right. Well, I guess I'm drawing on the hero concept because a lot of people are fascinated by hero stories. So growing up, I grew up in an era where, I would come home in the afternoon after school and would watch Superman on TV. Now, I'm sure you two gentlemen probably watched the same show when you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Absolutely.
as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, it was a TV show. Okay,
Yeah, right.
It was entertainment and it was light relief. But in looking back, there was an important message in that is pertinent to a person's career. You've got the two elements in that story. You've got Clark Kent, who is your mild-mannered reporter doing an everyday job, wearing his corporate suit, who gets called through a telephone call to step outside his daily routine and put on his Superman suit. And what he's been asked to do is step outside his daily survival needs to do something for humanity.
I love that.
That's the career shift.
Right.
Okay. So that's the three dimensions I look at in my career coaching when I work with someone. You've got the basic job for an income. Again, Clark Kent. Then it moves to the next level where it's about career for advancement, power, and status, but it's still about you. And then there's a third level, which is the calling, which is the Superman level, where you step outside your own life to make a contribution. Okay. And that's the Superman. We've all got that Superman heroic force inside us.
Yes.
That gets veiled and hidden over by the corporate suit of Clark Kent. Okay.
Wow.
There was a gentleman called Charles Handy wrote a book called The Empty Raincoat. He talked about a similar concept. We hide ourselves behind an empty corporate suit or raincoat, which is not fulfilling, but we never step into the great beyond.
I like Tony, that's awesome. On that point, then, may I ask you what your Superman heroic calling power is? Because you've gone through this with people. What is that for you? How have you identified that?
Well, it's helping them to see that they have that dynamic inside them, and through my questioning process,
Mm-hmm.
help them progressively move from that everyday job to a calling level, which is their contribution. So I get them to ask themselves 3 questions, and they're actually 3 very good questions that your people might consider when they go on your retreat. So the first question I get them to ask themselves is, how can I use my talent to be of greater service to humanity?
That's good.
Because that's not your everyday question that you get asked in an
Right.
employment interview, is it?
No,
It's
absolutely
about
not.
what value you bring to the table, and then you just go on and explain. So question number 1, how can I use my talent to be of greater service to humanity? Again, that aligns with Superman, okay, not with Clark Kent,
Right.
okay. Question number 2, do I have the courage to actually say yes to that adventure,
That's
to
an important
actually
one.
fulfill that?
Yes, that's
Okay,
awesome.
I know that I want to do it, but do I have the courage, or do I need support or assistance or a coach or a mentor or an aid
Right.
to actually help me take that journey? And I, as a coach, work with people, and I was working with one lady early this year, and she reached a point where she knew her corporate career had come to an end. But there still comes the day after you've made that decision where you hand in your employee badge, you
Right.
hand in your mobile phone, you hand in your laptop. It's a scary moment because
It
all
is.
these belongings that you've attached to are suddenly taken away. And she
Right.
knew there's no turning back now.
Right. You got to
Okay,
commit.
the Superman suit was going to come on now, and the corporate suit was coming off. So they do need reassurance that they're not going crazy. They need that helping hand as they're going through that transition from one world to another, because they're 2 different worlds.
Absolutely. It seems to
And
me. Oh, there's the third.
the third question, and
Yep.
then we can go for it, is take yourself, similar to what Jeff Bezos did. He left a finance job to start Amazon. He is an example of Clark Kent going to Superman.
100%.
Okay?
It's true.
That is the example. And one of the things that he motivated him, he asked himself the question, when I get to my final days on the planet, am I going to look back with regret that I never took that step?
So good.
Courage and regret is really, really big and important. It seems like a lot of your clients are looking for that validation, and having someone help them find the permission to become that hero, because that can be a really hard part of it, right? I mean, like you said, finding the courage, but also having somebody to kind of help you through that and kind of like soundboard, right?
Exactly. They need to get a sense, hold on, I've got all these signs of success, but what is it? What's missing? There's something. I'll keep asking myself, is this all there is?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So there needs someone to say, you're right, there is something missing, and there is something else. And that's the calling.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's wild, Tony. I love it. Where was your aha moment then?
Yeah.
In
That's what I was
wanting
going to
to
ask.
inspire your students, and what was your calling? Like,
Yeah.
what is it that like tipped you down this journey?
Yeah.
And
How did you
why
get
do
into
think
career
that?
reinvention? Like, where did that come from?
Okay. So the reason I've had a strong interest in this whole career game, if you like, is I had my own career challenges. And where you tend to stumble in life, as Joseph Campbell talks about, is where your treasure is. And what my greatest challenges were in the career space. I remember one evening, it was 6:30 p.m. Most people had gone home, and there was only me left in my small office and the company's deputy CFO at the time, who was very ambitious and was looking to become the CFO of the organisation. So I'd packed up for the day, put my papers in my briefcase, and was going to do some stuff at home. I've started walking out this narrow little corridor to go home. He'd heard me from his office that I was leaving, and from behind my shoulders, I heard the voice, "Where do you think you're going? I haven't finished with you yet."
Oh, geez.
Okay, and that was that. And that's so I had to turn around,
Okay.
Yeah.
pack my case, and go back into my office and do another hour. And it was a very long hour because, and that
Wow.
was where I had an opportunity to contemplate, thinking, I'm in a bit of a prison here. I
Sure.
really don't have full
Oh,
control
man.
of my life. This individual thinks he owns
I
me.
understand that. Yeah.
And I thought at some point I need to break this
Yes.
dilemma of not being in control of my own life. And that led me to my own vision. I did the Vision Quest, which is similar to what you do in terms of a retreat, apart from the fact it was a more group dynamic, even though there were times during that Vision Quest where we were spending time in
Yeah.
solitude. So that led me to this thing called the Vision Quest, which I did in the mid to late 90s. So at one point, there was a particular challenge that we had to do where there was 40 of us in this group, and we went and did these exercises in nature where you had to overcome some physical challenges. One of those was a high rope exercise.
Yep.
And I had an extreme fear of heights.
Doesn't
And I
very
wasn't
well.
keen on the idea of doing it. But anyway, I thought, well, I think I'm meant to do this. So I've decided to do this high rope. And I recall climbing up on this ladder when it got to my turn, and I'm starting to shake. And I progressively made my way up to the ropes. And I had to take a step off the wooden platform to eventually get onto these ropes, which took me a while to do. But the other students who were on the ground are giving me support and encouragement. So I'd taken the step off the solid platform onto the ropes. As soon as I did that, the ropes began to shake. And it wasn't the ropes that were shaking, it was Tony's
you.
Right.
hands and feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've slowly made my way to the midpoint of this rope where it starts to get a curve and the swing becomes accentuated, right?
No thanks.
And I'm thinking to myself, I've made it halfway. That's pretty good. And I vocalized that to the people below. Look, I think I'll go back. And a voice came back and said, well, why are you going back? You are just as far across to the other side as you are back to the start. Doesn't make sense.
Heck yeah,
babe.
So
Let's go.
I gathered my breath and just kept going and, got to the end. It took me longer than anyone else that day to actually get across. But I got across, then slowly came down and stepped onto solid footing. Then the focus of the group turned on to the next person whose turn was to climb. But as I've sort of contemplated and regathered myself in the background, two ladies in their 50s approached me and said, Tony, we weren't going to do that, but we saw what you went through. And
oh, geez.
if he can do it, we're going to give it a try.
Right.
And then they went off and put themselves in the queue, and they did it. And they did it in half the time. They just walked across. But I'm there thinking afterwards, and I think, oh my Lord, I got more satisfaction and joy inspiring these two ladies to take a step.
That was an aha moment.
Do something they wouldn't have done of their own, than the satisfaction to bathe in the glory that I had made it across. And that was counterintuitive.
Right.
The way I operated at the time. And that's when I knew, okay, that is what's missing in my career. It's what can I do to be of service to others? And that's where the true joy comes in. And nothing can really compete with that.
That is so cool. A moment of complete fear and trying to, go through something so mentally draining for you actually came out, not just the success of doing it, but came out to what your future and your passion and your calling is. I mean, that's a crazy moment. That must have been so cool, and being able to then capitalize on that.
Sorry, Carl. So that story then connects to the Superman suit, because it was my heroic moment of getting across from this employee fear to becoming more entrepreneurial, where it was about making a contribution. You see the connection? I'd actually put my Superman suit on that day.
Yes.
right?
It's that
Sure.
it all happened like in real, like our solo retreat all came from just an experience I did. And then I just kind of documented it and reflected on it afterwards. But it wasn't something we went out and like built. It was something, same with you. Like this was a natural progression of your life. And where after you reflect about it, you're like, holy crap.
Yep.
Like if I can utilize these tools and teach people the mental clarity I had in this moment, or whatever that may be, in order to keep moving forward, I truly have something. And so I love hearing it when people become coaches naturally. They're not really seeking it. It's just, it's in them, right? And it's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Yeah,
Because I probably would have took about double the time to get over that thing. There ain't no way.
Yeah. I would have had to push him
that's
over
the
like
Superman suit. That is the Superman suit. Yeah,
You'd have to have Superman's supercar also, because they ain't.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap things up, is if there was one point that was inspirational, maybe something actionable for our listeners, or something you kind of want to leave them with to kind of noodle on, what would that be?
It's interesting. One of the most important stories in Australia in the last week, I'm not sure if it's made it to America or not, is there was two young 19-year-old teenage girls from Australia travelled to Thailand. And they were staying in a backpacker's place, and they were at a hotel one evening, and apparently their alcohol was laced with methanol.
Oh.
So they drank the alcohol. Within a few days, the two girls passed away. And there's been a number of other tourists. And the Australian Prime Minister got in Parliament one day and passed on his condolences to his family, and the leader of the opposition did the same thing. And you could sense that when they spoke, they were coming from their head. They were performing a role as politicians. And then there was another lady who spoke, and she gave a 2-minute speech. And she talked about the lives of these two young girls and how it's every parent's fear that they would outlive their children, that something happens to their children while they're traveling or whatever. And because this lady had a speech prepared, she had a piece of paper in her hand where she had some dot points about what she was going to say. And as she was speaking for this 90 seconds, you could see the paper shaking in her hands all the way through that, because she wasn't speaking as a politician. She was speaking as a mother, right?
Wow.
Talking about what it would be like standing beside the bed of a child who the life support system is going to be turned off. And that's the message I bring. Are you playing a role as a politician or as some executive in life, or are you truly being authentic and a true heart expressed person who can actually feel the dynamic? And when I would suggest to your people, when they come on the retreat, make sure that you come as this person invested with your heart,
Right.
not just as a head exercise where you're analysing what's happening in your life, but really getting into the heart of things and actually feeling your life dynamic, as well as feeling other people's dynamic. And I was watching this lady on the video, and you actually become tearful. Seeing how she actually stepped into the role of a parent. And that's what I'm saying to your people who are coming on these retreats.
Man.
Be genuine in doing this. And I talk about, with my clients, the concept of artificial intelligence, not from this new machinery that's coming on board, but sometimes we fall into the trap of becoming artificially intelligent by just staying in our heads. And it's so important today that to be fully expressed human beings, you enter your heart. And I think that's the greatest gift your peak fulfillment work does on the retreat. You can't have peak fulfillment. And I want to reinforce this point. You will never reach peak fulfillment if you don't bring joy and satisfaction and do something from the heart.
So true. You
Jeez.
have to buy in with your heart and authenticity and remove the filter that is fogging not just your mind, but your soul, right? And so bringing it to actual life. Thank you so much for that. It's so important. And we share that with people so often. And some people have never really given that a thought before. Like, are you really coming to whatever it may be in life with real authenticity and love and who you are, not just in the head, like you're saying.
Yep.
So Tony, if people wanted to get in touch with you and follow you, hopefully, start working with you with their career reinvention and transitions, where would they do that?
Well, they can go to my LinkedIn with Tony Pisanelli or tonypisanelli.com, or they can find me at the careeradvantage.com, which is my professional career coaching site. I've also got a number of books. One's called The Career by Design, if they actually want some guidance around how they make that shift from an employee to a more entrepreneurial human contribution approach. So that book is available on Amazon as well. So there's a number of ways that they can tap into me if they would like.
Awesome. Well, Tony, thank you so much for your time, man, and so much value and metaphors like the Superman suit, and so much that I know is going to stick with me personally, and I know the listeners as well. So thank you so much for your time, my man. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was awesome. The amount of people that need to hear that message, specifically at the end, on bringing authenticity really to, not just the solo retreat, but just everything that you do in life. It just makes such a extraordinary difference. And I love the Superman suit. I know there was so much more to dive into that, but when you can finally find that moment of going from that ordinary individual to an actual superhero, and what I think is crazy too, is, as we wrap this up, is it's like a reflective process. In the moment, you might not notice it, but afterwards you're like, I did it. I put my superhero cape on.
God, that was awesome.
Yes.
I am so thrilled to have Tony on the show.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. If you want to listen to more amazing guests just like Tony, make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on that next episode of the Peak Podcast. We'll see you then.
See you guys.